I was gonna wait for the full Legacy reveal tomorrow to work on a video talking about the new line, but I wanna address this real quick. And yeah, we're gonna have this exact same conversation once the new stuff is revealed, because the same exact thing is gonna happen. But I'm gonna cut this off at the pass, put in my 2 cents now. All right, so just yesterday, we got the early bird reveal of some of the upcoming Legacy figures, showing off the new Deluxe G1 skids and a new Voyager Prime Bulkhead. Now, lots of people have been hungry for Prime style figures. Their appetite definitely whet, partly because of the series' 10th anniversary just this last year, and the reissue of some previously Japanese exclusive figures. On top of that, the Legacy releaks were assuring us that we would be getting a Generations line more akin to Thrilling 30 or Universe 2.0 before it, updating characters from many different series, not just almost exclusively Bayverse and G1 as we've mostly had for a few years now. The leaks specifically mentioning that Prime characters were finally on the menu, and also noting very strangely that Bulkhead was to be a retool of Optimus. And that should have been our first clue that something was up. Because now we've seen it, and it's not the updated Bulkhead we were expecting. This Bulkhead very specifically being designated as Prime Universe Bulkhead, but done up with a G1 design language. Now here's a hot take though. I think people base their expectations solely on the words of this leak, and even if the leaks we tend to get are quite accurate, you shouldn't do that. I see posts like this, and maybe they're trolls, and they're definitely over-exaggerating, and I'm not saying that I'm 100% happy with this design either. I have some issues with it, but the hype for this figure was generated entirely by leaks and fan expectations. No information before now has been from Hasbro themselves, as far as I'm aware. So if you were expecting one thing, I don't think you can really blame Hasbro for not delivering that one thing that they didn't promise you. I'm not going to bat for Hasbro. I'm not saying you shouldn't ask or hope for certain figures, right? I always wanted a mainline Starsaber, and we've had the prospect of one basically dangled in front of us for several years now, and I would have never expected to get a Victory Leo with it. Strange things can happen. I think it feels unfair a lot of the time because G1 and movie characters are always getting new updated figures. And I understand why this feels unfair, especially for younger fans whose favorite series might not be either of these. To tell you the truth, they're not my favorite series either. For example, G1 Optimus gets a new mainline figure every year. You know, not to mention getting another Masterpiece figure just recently. And that's part of the business model. Optimus has to be on the shelf. Always. But I think there's a little more to it than that. Siege Optimus had a Cybertronian mode as well as set the standard for the scale going forward. Earthrise Optimus was what I would consider the most definitive version possible at this scale. And Kingdom Optimus was a little small boy. He was meant to go with the arc that was coming out this year. Going back in time makes what I'm getting at a little more obvious. Power of the Primes Optimus was an armor up gimmick figure. Titan's Return was a triple changer. Combiner Wars was a combiner core. This is my general impression of Hasbro's philosophy. They don't make the same figure over and over again. Each of these does something different or has a different intention behind it. Even though they're all ostensibly G1 Optimus Prime, they're not all the same kind of figure. This is also the same reason that I think comparing figures is not always a meaningful exercise. So when people want a new updated Prime Bulkhead, I'm torn because they already knocked it way out of the park with the first one they did, and that was the one that should have been more available to people. But they did another one, and they went in a slightly different direction with that one, whether you like that figure or not. And this time they went in a completely different direction from that. I will recognize that I come from a place of absolute privilege on this subject, since I already own all of these figures. But don't fucking get mad at me though, right? I got up at the crack of dawn on a Friday morning to make sure I was the first person in Toys R Us to get these, because there was a rumor that Toys R Us was getting a random restock of these months after they were supposed to be gone. I earned these, okay? And I do know that these figures, especially the first edition ones, aren't particularly budget friendly, which is why we would hope for a new version to come along. I'm not gonna tell you to not be disappointed. All I'm saying is I think I understand why Hasbro would choose to do this as opposed to just redoing the old figure. Could they top this? I don't know, maybe. With current manufacturing practices, definitely not at a Voyager price point. But do they have to? Well, I don't really think so. But if you aren't going to pony up the cash for the excessive aftermarket prices, and I don't think that you should, I would say the best option is demanding a reissue. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, considering that they reissued Breakdown, who they assured us would never make it over here. So go shove that down their throats. Demand a Transformers Prime 1st edition, 2nd edition. And go tell them to make a Leader Class hard shell while you're at it. That's my opinions. Please share yours in the comments below. Bye-bye.